Welcome, friends. You're watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we'll break down the situation on the front and around the world as of May 8, 2026. It's been an eventful day. A great deal has happened. So let's get straight to it. And as always, before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so right now and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. YouTube has been significantly restricting the reach of military analytical content lately, and your subscription is real, tangible support that keeps this channel going. Chernihiv direction. Fires along the Bryansk border. We'll start in northern Chernihiv Oblast, where a story is unfolding that in my view is receiving far too little attention. Over the past 24 hours, hundreds of square kilometers of forest have been burning across northern Ukraine, along the border with Russia's Bryansk Oblast. The Ukrainian side claims the fire was sparked by a Russian airstrike, presumably targeting warehouse facilities. A prolonged dry spell had preceded the strike, creating ideal conditions for the fire to spread rapidly. Satellite imagery published today shows clear thermal anomalies. The scale is striking. The blaze covers significant areas running directly along the Russian-Ukrainian border. Ukrainian authorities are publishing footage of firefighting crews attempting to bring the flames under control. But the fire itself is arguably not the main story. What matters most is the dense wall of smoke now hanging over the region, which is significantly degrading aerial reconnaissance capabilities on both sides. That detail deserves special attention. The smoke is blanketing enormous areas. Under its cover, almost anything could happen, particularly in the period following the conclusion of the Victory Day celebrations scheduled for May 10th. This area sits on a potentially sensitive axis toward Chernihiv and Kyiv, running along the Bryansk stretch of the border. This situation warrants very close monitoring. Sumy sector. Moving to the Sumy sector. Small adjustments are being recorded on the Krasnopillia axis. According to various sources, Russian army reconnaissance and sabotage units continue their advance toward Krasnopillia. The changes remain tactical for now, but the direction of movement is consistent. Also worth noting is the situation in Seredina Buda district, the northernmost Russian bridgehead in Sumy Oblast. An advance of roughly 1 to 2 kilometers has been recorded to the northwest of the settlement of Sopich. It's worth recalling that Sopich came under Russian control earlier this year, and there were repeated pledges to retake it. That never happened. Moreover, what was once a fragmented collection of separate footholds has now effectively consolidated into a single crescent-shaped mass with a buffer zone, in the classical sense of that term. Kharkiv sector. Vovchansk direction. On the Kharkiv and Borova axes, the situation is becoming more interesting. While no large-scale changes to the contact line have been formally recorded, important tactical developments are taking place. To the north of Okremivka, Russian mappers have charted advances and the establishment of firm control. Russian units have been spotted inside Okremivka itself, and intense close-quarters fighting is underway. It appears likely that Okremivka will come under Russian control within the next day or two. All of this closely resembles the formation of a buffer zone. Varvarivka, Mala Vovcha, and Okremivka will in all probability join that zone in the near future. Additionally, after many months of relative quiet on the southern and western flanks of the Vovchansk bridgehead, significant gains have been recorded in the Izbitska area. That settlement has come almost entirely under Russian control, and the grey zone there has been eliminated. Simultaneously, the advance that stalled around October of last year near Verkhnya Pisarivka has resumed. The bridgehead is now expanding, and the settlement of Losivka is expected to come under Russian army control imminently. Lyman direction, a potential major encirclement. We now turn to what is arguably the most significant piece of information today. Reports are emerging from the Lyman direction that, if confirmed, could represent the most consequential development of this phase of the war. According to insider reporting from multiple independent sources, Russian units have executed a deep thrust through the forest tracts around Lyman, penetrating up to 6 kilometers, and have nearly completed an encirclement of the city. If accurate, this would be the largest cauldron since Mariupol. Since Mariupol, there has been no encirclement of comparable scale. That may now be changing. What gives these reports some credibility? First, Lyman has long been in a tactically precarious position, effectively already in an operational pocket, with severely constrained logistics. Second, Russian forces have consistently moved faster through forested terrain than across open ground. Third, the timing aligns with the stated desire to produce a demonstrable result before May 9th. Fourth, this axis has been a focus of sustained effort for a very long time. If the AFU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, grouping of several thousand troops, has indeed been encircled, this would reshape the operational picture across the entire northern Donetsk Oblast. We will be watching closely. Also from the Lyman direction, reports are coming in of Russian units attempting to cross the Siversky Donets River near Stary Caravan in the direction of Ryhorodok. No mapper has confirmed this yet, but circumstantial indicators suggest that Russian forces have already reached the riverbank. East Slavic sector, the fall of Kriva Luka. Critically important news is coming from the East Slavic sector. According to an official statement by the Russian Ministry of Defense, units of the southern grouping have established full control over the settlement of Kriva Luka. Why does this matter? Kriva Luka sits on the strategic high ground, chalk spoil heaps along the Siversky Donets River. It is a commanding position that dominates the surrounding terrain. Its capture means that the Russian army now controls all strategic heights on this section of the front. The consequences are straightforward. Further advances westward toward Pieskunivka, Starodubivka, Mykolaivka and Oleksandrivka will now proceed under fundamentally different and considerably more favorable conditions. The East Slavic defensive line has effectively begun to collapse. This is not merely a tactical gain, it is a structural turning point on this axis. Sloviansk direction. On the Sloviansk axis, Russian units have reached the outskirts of Oleksandrivka. No active assault on the settlement has been recorded yet, though the position is significant. It sits on a road junction and logistics node. The advance, however, continues uninterrupted. Slowly, methodically, rhythmically, which is perhaps the defining characteristic of movement along this axis. In the past 24 hours, several square kilometers to the southwest of Fedorivka Druha have come under Russian control. A modest gain, but one in a consistent direction. Kostiantynivka sector. Formally, no changes are recorded on the Kostiantynivka axis, but the information that is not being openly discussed here is itself telling. First, Russian units have established near-total control over the Promyslovyi district, the southern part of Kostiantynivka. This is a notable fact, all the more so because Russian mappers, for reasons unknown, are not reflecting it on their charts. A military secret? Possibly. Second, the leaflet campaign continues. Pro-Ukrainian sources are publishing footage of leaflet drops over the northern districts of the city, offering AFU servicemen the choice to surrender or vacate their positions without a fight. Observation of this axis over time shows a clear pattern. Every time such footage appears, Russian forces begin moving toward the area where the leaflets were dropped. This suggests that the Russian side is preparing to intensify its push from Novodmitrivka westward, toward the Kryvyi Torets River and the northern outskirts of Kostiantynivka, with the aim of fully encircling the AFU grouping in the central and southern parts of the city. The objective situation of the AFU garrison in Kostiantynivka is extremely difficult. The road to Druzhkivka is under around-the-clock fire control, and moving along it for several dozen kilometers is essentially a suicidal undertaking. Supply lines are under serious threat. Dobropillia, Druzhkivka direction. This axis continues to see active advances by Russian units and reconnaissance sabotage groups. The map has been adjusted repeatedly over the past several days. A clear pattern is emerging: movement toward the T0514 highway, with the aim of establishing either fire or physical control over the main logistics routes. Reaching that road would create severe supply problems for AFU garrisons in both Dobropillia and Druzhkivka. The advances are not yet fully reflected on open-source maps, but cartographic lag is a normal phenomenon. Simultaneously, strikes against infrastructure in Druzhkivka and Kramatorsk continue to be recorded, both guided bombs and drone strikes. Zaporizhzhia direction. Ukrainian counter-offensive. We turn now to the most difficult topic of today's briefing, the Zaporizhzhia sector. The situation here is developing unfavorably for the Russian side, and that must be stated plainly. The Ukrainian counteroffensive on this axis did not begin yesterday or the day before. It has been underway for several weeks. Good logistics, proximity to the regional center, and reserves accumulated well in advance allowed the AFU to build genuine strike potential here. The results? Ukrainian forces have retaken almost all of Primorske, pushed Russian units back from the Konka River, and brought a number of other settlements under Ukrainian control, including Novoyakovlivka and surrounding villages. Fighting is now ongoing for Stepnohirsk, the key settlement on this axis, located just north of Kamenske. According to the most optimistic Ukrainian side assessments, the front line now runs roughly along the road from Pavlivka to Stepnohirsk and continues to the southern edge of Primorske. If the pace of the counteroffensive is maintained, the Russian army will have to consider withdrawal to the river line, where it would then need to organize a new defensive posture. On the Orikhiv direction, running from Huliapol toward Orikhiv, a small but meaningful positive development has been recorded. Russian units advanced north of the village of Bohata. The territorial gain is modest, but the significance lies in the fact of offensive initiative being sustained at all. This is especially notable given that on the adjacent Dnipropetrovsk axis, where the AFU also attempted to develop an offensive, that push has stalled. Intense meeting engagements have been grinding on there for roughly a month, and talk of liberating Dnipropetrovsk Oblast has come to nothing. Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz. A few words on the acute situation in the Strait of Hormuz. In the early hours of May 8th, the American side launched what can only be described as a media demonstration operation. The goal, to escort a convoy of tankers and dry cargo vessels through the Strait of Hormuz under the protection of U.S. Navy destroyers, thereby demonstrating the American fleet's ability to guarantee freedom of navigation in defiance of Iranian pressure. The destroyers Tracton, Rafael Peralta, and Mason were committed to the operation. The convoy transited the strait and headed toward the Gulf of Oman. However, as it passed north of Oman, the Iranian side opened fire, not against the American warships, but against the commercial vessels in the convoy. As a result of combined strikes, several tankers and dry cargo ships were hit and, by all indications, destroyed. Iran published corresponding footage. The American side claims that all strikes against the destroyers were successfully repelled and that the ships exited the strait without incident. That is technically accurate. The destroyers were never the intended targets. But the operation to escort commercial vessels out of the Persian Gulf failed completely. U.S. forces subsequently conducted retaliatory strikes along the Hormuz coastline against Keshm Island and Bandar Abbas, targeting what were described as Iranian missile and drone launch positions. The bottom line, neither side achieved a strategic result. The United States demonstrated a military presence. Iran demonstrated the ability to interdict commercial shipping. Further attempts to reopen the strait are inevitable, but their prospects for success, given the current configuration, are highly questionable. An additional factor, China, which had until now conspicuously refrained from public statements, has come out with an unambiguous declaration of support for Iran in any scenario involving a larger-scale use of force. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, has closed its airspace and military bases to any potential operation against Iran. Against this backdrop, oil prices continue to hold at current levels. A geopolitical risk premium is preventing a further decline, while White House statements about an imminent deal with Tehran are preventing a significant rise. The published framework of that proposed agreement reportedly includes a complete ban on any Iranian nuclear program, including civilian nuclear energy, along with the surrender of already enriched uranium. Tehran has yet to respond publicly to these terms. Friends, that concludes today's briefing.